Studies have shown that there are at least 3 degrees of separation between us. Psychologists call it 3 degrees of influence, meaning if you, person 1, display a certain behavior to another person in your social circle, person 2, such as generally being happy or having good eating habits, that person can be affected by it and can pass the behavior onto someone in their social circle, person 3. New York Times writer Clive Thompson wrote an article called "Are Your Friends Making You Fat?" which highlighted the Framingham Heart Study, where specific health data of 15,000 Framingham, Massachusetts residents was carefully recorded. The study led to the discovery that some behaviors are socially contagious. Study participants who had signs of poor health, such as unhappiness, smoking, and obesity, were found to have social circles which had people with similar unhealthy behaviors. Conversely, people with good health had friends who had good health habits, such as being a non-smoker, physically fit, and happy. Researcher Timothy So mentioned in Positive Psychology News the researchers that used the data to develop these findings also did a study on 1,700 Facebook users at a university. They found that students whose profile pictures had smiling expressions tended to link to friends who were also smiling in their Facebook profile pictures. The researchers also found a common social trend cluster for people who had sad expressions in their profile pictures, but to a lesser degree. Malcolm Gladwell wrote about this phenomenon in his book, The Tipping Point, where crime in Brooklyn, New York in the 80s and early 90s was high. However, in 5 years, crime reduced. An increase in police presence surely contributed to the lower crime rates. But if police presence was the only factor, crime rates would have slowly gone down, but they plummeted to historically lower proportions. The tipping point was likely due to a social trend. Gladwell asserts that behavior is socially contagious, and that this was likely the cause for the plummet in crime. I've also observed that this behavioral transference phenomena can go beyond one person, but not only with friends. One example is road rage. I've observed a driver operating their car aggressively who angered a driver whom he cut off in traffic. Even though aggressive driver number 1 sped off, I noticed driver 2 became aggressive with the third driver shortly after. In another case, I was standing in the checkout line at a grocery store and observed a customer being rude to a cashier. The cashier became visibly angry, and after that transaction was curt to the next customer in line. When I got up to the cashier as person 3, I could tell she was still tense, so I did all I could to gently smile and be kind to her. I recently spoke with another grocery cashier who was clearly in a grumpy mood and tired. She said despondently as I approached, "Oh God, they keep coming." I explained exuberantly, "Yes, and that's a great thing. Just think of what a great sign this is for the health of our economy, and how people in our community are doing well enough to buy an abundance of food, and that our infrastructure is set up so that we have the ease of getting such a variety of food. And you're a part of it. We wouldn't have this opportunity if you weren't a part of it." Her posture went from slumped over to upright, and her facial expression looked as if a switch turned on. She said, "Wow, that's a great perspective. You're right." I left seeing her grinning proudly. I wonder how many people received the positive energy I gave her who came after me. If we base it on the research findings, probably at least 2 more. So what's the takeaway? Number 1. Follow the proverbial saying that has been passed down for eons by many different people in many different ways. Tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. Number 2. Most of us have acquaintances, friends, and close friends. Select the friends whom you bring close very carefully. Number 3. Be conscious about the behaviors and energy that you bring to other people.